for a crypto asset network is the equivalent to the space-time constants in our in a universe. I mean, the fundamental problem is we start with inflation again. The government can create more of it, but here the inflation problem is not a minor problem like gold, it's a major problem, right? Instead of getting a guaranteed 2% inflation with an occasional 20%, you get a guaranteed, I think Saifedean suggested the number was more like 10 or 11% guaranteed, 7% guaranteed in the US, more in other countries. So you're getting a guaranteed inflation of somewhere between 7 and 11% a year, and you're getting an occasional inflation of 30% or 40% a year.
Yep.
So the base layer protocol doesn't work so well, right? It's not conservative, right? And so if you have a shared ledger that's not conservative, right? It's collapsing, and that rate's, you know, there's just nothing. I say to people, there's no engineered machine or structure that works with that degree of error or inflation. If you had a 2% leak in your gas tank, over what period? Right? If you're leaking 2% a day, your car won't work. And so leakage of your swimming pool or a balloon or any kind of electrical system or any thermodynamic system at all just doesn't work with that much leakage. So the inflation, ironically, right, inflation implies you're getting more, but really it's dilution in a way. It's guaranteed dilution or depletion. So the first problem with fiat is it's just depleting energy at too rapid a rate. If we just said 10% a year on average, then a system which is losing 10% of its energy every single year, or almost 1% a month, it's kind of a crippling first order problem on the base layer.
Right.
It's almost like building on, if I'm building on sand and the sand was sinking 10 feet a year, right? What structure can you build?
Right.
Right? When you're building on something, you want to build on granite and you want the minimum deflection. Granite doesn't deflect, steel doesn't deflect, sand and clay deflects, swampland deflects. So the problem that we start with is the base layer is collapsing. The second problem of the fiat standard is confiscation, as the government can seize, they can seize your currency or they can seize the asset. And, you know, to a lesser extent, other people can seize it. I mean, you can't, if you carry your cash around, right, there's the famous image of Pablo Escobar, you know, sitting and burning $100 bills to stay warm.
The sneaky IRS tax law that's sweeping the U.S. Big banks don't want you to know about the opportunity this IRS cheat code.
If you can carry it around, someone with a gun can seize it, so that's a problem. If you don't carry it around, then the counterparty that you trusted it with, generally the bank, can seize it. And in all cases, generally the government can seize it. And so these are three fundamental defects with the fiat standard. Your property rights are weak under the confiscation risk.
Yeah.
And your property is defective because of the constant inflation. You literally bought swampland in Florida that's sinking. It's worse than that, right? Because swampland doesn't sink forever. You know, it's pretty much as bad as it's going to get. This is worse than that because it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. When you look at, if you're considering a crypto asset network like Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is the greatest, maybe the only successful example, but certainly the greatest example of a crypto asset network. The the frequency parameter and the block size parameter for a crypto asset network is the equivalent to the space-time constants in our in a universe. So the frequency, the 10-minute frequency, that's how fast the universe evolves. And the block size is the gravitational constant. How much mass, or what is the relationship between mass and energy, and how tightly packed is matter? And once you've established those two constants, you've defined the constants that run the universe.
Right.
Everything else evolves around those two constants. If this is why you would never want to change them, because changing them is playing God, and you only get to play God once. Like when you start the universe, if you change the frequency and the block size of Bitcoin, you invalidate all work that's come before.
Right.
You imperil all structures that have formed in the universe since the beginning of time. You impair every mechanism that's been created within that set of structures. You impair them and maybe break them, and you throw the future into chaos.
So,
Like the entire Bitcoin mining industry. It's all predicated upon Bitcoin coming out at a certain speed and the protocol tapering off, and the value of all transaction fees are predicated upon the block size. Right. If you increase the block size, the transaction revenues collapse. If the transaction revenues collapse, the Bitcoin mining profitability collapses. If the Bitcoin mining collapses, the energy usage collapses, the security collapses, the network collapses.
Right.
Right? Like you don't what's going on with some of the proof of stakers is if you flip from proof of work to proof of stake, you destroy your entire mining industry.
Right.
If you destroy your entire mining industry, all of the security, all the social, political, economic, thermodynamic security collapses.
Yep.
If it collapses, the integrity and the durability of the money collapses. There are all sorts of second order, third order, fourth order consequences to this. And the fundamental basis of integrity is one has to know that God is not going to change the rules on you if you spend your entire life working on something.
Right.
If you want to drive people insane, change the rules. Like if I just, I change the speed of light and the speed of sound, and I quintuple gravity before you compete in the Olympics. And then when your competitor starts competing, I dial down gravity to the moon gravity, and they jump 180 feet in the air and they beat you.
Right.
And then what happens next? You're like, well, that guy had moon gravity and I had Saturn gravity, and my my legs are broken and my hips are broken, and I'm lying on a gurney with an IV in my arm, and my heart's about to stop. And the other dude is bounding over the stadium. Doesn't seem quite fair. Okay, and at some point, when the gods toy with you like that, then you say, well, I'm not going to play this game anymore, right?
Right. Exactly.
And people withdraw from the ecosystem. It's like, what would you do other than run as hard as you could away from a random universe that wanted to kill you?